Ready to start playing Königgrätz, and I always spell it with only one G, and then autocorrect tells me otherwise, but it's very, very difficult for me, and of course without the umlauts, but although I may have slipped them in at one place. Alright, so I'm about ready to start. I decided to look at the sequence of play to determine whether or not I need to flip things over, into their march phase before I actually start the play. I don't think I have to make that decision right away because that happens during formation organization, but I did notice something in the rules that I don't like. So sequence of play is, formatted as a thing, and then we go into the detailed elements of it in each section, and this is the majority of the rules of the game, to tell you the truth, right? So all of section 4 is sequence of play, and that's several pages. I don't know if I mind the numerical organization, but there ought to be an abbreviated sequence of play that shows all the steps without having to work my way through the rules. Again, this is a playtest copy, but the rules are fairly polished at this point, at least in the appearance that I have. So I want to make sure to highlight that kind of thing, either ahead of all the different things, and then that makes some sense, or I would prefer them ahead, but also it would be useful to have them on a player aid or on the back of the page, along with the TEC and whatever else. Some of those graphics just may not be completed yet, right? that may be the issue here. But I want to point that out. All right, so let's look. Well, nothing's exhausted, so we don't have to do that. Headquarters placement. All right. So, again, the wording here, first remove and then place their headquarters mark on the map, as if there's only one. There isn't only one. And there's something problematic that's not described, which is there are headquarters which come in, like this one, as reinforcements. And how those are to be handled isn't really determined. I think it makes the most sense to deploy them at this point, but maybe that's not the intention. If that's not the intention, it really needs to be spelled out. If it is, it should be still. Because, you tend to sort your things and say, oh, this says 1 ABC. Well, this isn't a unit that moves, so that's not quite right. It comes in on turn 1 and should deploy by that. Okay, so would also be useful, although I don't know if there's room for it, not if you're going to have Königgrätz on the board, to have some kind of little box to throw blown units into. Not necessary, but if not, I don't know where it talks about blown units. Yeah, it says just remove it from the map. It should have some kind of higher standing than that, because the difference between eliminated and blown can become blurred very easily if you don't have some sort of special set-aside space. So that should be spelled out as well. Okay. So look, we're actually getting, some feedback out of me trying to look at the rules in play, which I wasn't exactly expecting. I always think, well, when I read the rules, I catch everything, but obviously not. Okay. Headquarters placement has to be within 3 of, or 5 for Benedict and Moltke. Now, I got a problem. I don't have a Moltke. Uh-oh. I'm going to look and see if I'm supposed to. I have all the counters. There weren't that many. But yeah, I have this von Bittenfeld What do we got here? So the Prussian has 3. First Prussian Army under Karl, Bittenfeld, and yeah. So it doesn't appear there's that. This is a little confusing. You're playing as von Moltke. He's actually not on the field. He's back in Berlin, I think, trying to command things, which in World War I they learned it's a terrible, terrible idea. But let's see. Where are we here? Starting with the Prussian side. Okay, so this is weird. All the headquarters are placed within 3. Benedict can be placed within 5, and von Moltke could be placed within 5. There is no von Moltke. I don't know if that means to say Frederick Karl or Bittenfeld or someone has that capability. I'm going to say no and hope it doesn't affect much, but it's going to limit the flexibility of the Prussian forces to not have any kind of headquarters that works that way. But okay. Yeah, there's obviously a mistake there. You know, and clearly, if it's the player representing von Moltke, then it should say only Prince Albert would be within 3, right? Because Benedict is specifically called out. So, well, what do headquarters do for me? Well, yeah, that's a good question. Headquarters allow me to fight, and they allow me to kind of move. And if I want to advance, I'm going to need it this way. Now, this has a range of 4 or 2 on its combat side. This is problematic because I don't know how the game's going to develop and whatnot. But if I want to do some kind of outflank, I kind of have to express that right now. And that's, you know, it's hard to learn new concepts on the fly as you're playing, and that's really what we're doing here. On the other hand, it looks like they're kind of weak in the center here. So I cannot be in an enemy zone of control. No. It's placed within 3 hexes of a friendly unit which is currently not in an enemy zone of control. It doesn't say an empty hex, so this is problematic. The headquarters must be placed within 3 hexes of a friendly unit which is not in an enemy zone of control. If this is not possible, the headquarters, NHQ, I guess, may be placed on any empty hex on the map. Which means, since these guys are not in an enemy zone of control, I could drop the headquarters here if I so desired. I know what the advantage of combat is. I think this is more or less what I want to do with this one. Okay. Well, since I placed a combat 1, I think the Austrians want to place a combat 1. That gives me only a range of 3. So, I don't know, here maybe? That seems to get most of his command in range. I could put it further forward. I don't want to do that because I think I'm going to fall back. That puts me back on the Prussians. Maybe they place this one, maybe they don't. So again, I don't know what the effects of a headquarters placement is, and this is painful because there's no single rule that says, hey, what does the headquarters do? It's kind of embedded in the attack rules, where it'll give a benefit to combat but I don't think there's any requirement you be in supply. And somewhere in the movement rules, I bet you there's something. Yeah, unit which begins its movement outside its friendly headquarters must move closer. No unit can go outside of their friendly headquarters range. So this is problematic. Like, I put this here. This means the entire Prussian army has to move in that direction because it's a low-range attack thing. You know what? I'm not in combat formation. Does that matter? Yeah, I think it does. I think I can't engage. All right, we'll put it this way then. Okay. Maybe, yeah, but maybe I can because there's pulsing. Screw it, I'll put it in combat. I want that combat bonus. And again, I have no idea how this system is going to play out, right? Which is why I have to look at it this way. I wonder if this is a piece of poop. Or some piece of plant matter. It feels hard, but there's no guarantee. I track so much shit in. And I don't sweep in this room. My wife never really swept this room, so it just has collected up a lot of garbage from outside. Okay. So trying to make decisions under, this, I got no idea how this game is going to play out type of feel is definitely difficult. So this next Prussian one, I'm assuming I'm not going to be able to engage. Hard to tell. I can place it anywhere on the map because there's no units on the map. As far as I know, tracing line of communication doesn't have anything to do. Rivers, etc. aren't affected by it. I like the idea of big outflank. But I also like the idea of forces kind of cooperating. They're coming in over here. Cav is inherently weak in most cases, not having a star, not being able to really counterattack, except, I guess I'll put it here. Here it cannot be in an enemy zone of control. Okay. And that'll give me Prince Albert here. Prince Albert sees that the Prussians are coming in this direction and says, I don't know what I'm going to do. Again, it's almost like facing completely different. This system is so different that it's almost like facing something that, you've never seen anything like it before. Now, obviously, there's been games, some of the Mark Herman games that preceded it are showing something, but we're using the same kind of system. But it's very, very hard. It's not like under normal games, you're like, well, yeah, I know what I'm going to position and I know what's going to go where, but I don't know what the overall impact of these headquarters is. I kind of know the rules that surround them. And here then the question is, do I want to block this apparent move or cut off these bridges? I think I would rather coordinate and consolidate my force. I have to be within range. I'm going to give it the combat ability because, hey, I don't really see... Marchability feels like it's what you want if you want to spread your troops out. And like cordoning or something like that. Combat ability feels like it's about, I'm willing to tighten my forces up, but I want the fights to actually, I want the fights to be in my advantage. Okay. So that has gotten us through headquarters placement. That was a lot of effort to do very, very little, right? Blown unit return. Starting with the Prussian, players may return a maximum of 2 blown units to the map. Yeah. Austrian bombardment phase. So, the idea of dropping what amounts to a zone of control which is a really pitiful interdict, in my view, in one place, doesn't generate any zones of influence or anything like that, seems minimal. The idea of forcing an enemy to retreat in a game in which units can basically move as far as they want by alternating turns, etc., again, seems minimal. So I will not be following Austrian doctrine here because the game allows me not to. I don't see a point to wasting a limited resource for something that, you know, at best is a couple hexes of retreat and a zone of control. That zone might be really, really important at some point or another, and maybe I need to place it way up here on my turn when I don't know what the hell is going to happen in a turn. But I sure got no idea of any value right now. And notably, I can't throw a zone of control onto anywhere near the entry hexes. That's specifically prohibited. Okay. Jesus, I'm already wiped out by this. I mean, it is just so completely different, the thinking involved. Okay, formation organization. Each unit that's not in an enemy zone of influence may flip. There's no ordering to this. All right. I would guess most people, you know, hey, we're in close combat contact, we'll be in fighting formation. Otherwise, we'll be in march formation. What's the difference? That's not march formation, that's blowing my cav or fatiguing my cav. So I'm going to flip them all over onto march because I don't know. Now, why do you want to be in combat formation? It's more that you're forced into it, I think. I don't think you want to be in it ever. I don't remember. This arrow and star, maybe it's just that I'm not used to it, but it's really hard to distinguish. These are all cav. Again, it's hard to distinguish the cav from the infantry necessarily. There's a lot of pieces that look very similar on the board, is what it comes down to. Okay, so we'll put everything in march formation. Any unit in an enemy zone of control or zone of influence. Let's make sure there's a zone of influence here. These guys are forced into combat formation. I think that's it. Interesting. Okay. Exiting enemy zone of control. Now we have orders for alternating. There's no orders as to, you know, who picks what to put into march, but again, I think there's no reason not to be in march if you can, because you want your movement points. Although with pulsing, who cares? Because, oh, I only have one movement point, but, you know, I might get to move a dozen times during the game, during a game turn. The Prussian player selects a friendly, and we'll see how that plays out. A friendly unit in an enemy zone of control to perform a retreat. We have nothing in zones of control, so we're not going to be doing that. Okay, now I guess we're in the movement phase, which again, the ordering here, which I had issues with and it has to be reordered. Whatever that reordering is needs to make its way into the what I'd call the abbreviated sequence of play. There really isn't a sequence of play because things like this, the reinforcements enter the map as the first thing under the movement phase before the alternation. There's something, you know, something's very wrong there, so I don't have a pulsing. I think the reinforcements from what something else over here said are meant to enter as regular units, but they have to do so before you move any of your regular units. Like I said, I'm getting fatigued, especially in the voice. I'm going to hold off there and I don't know, do whatever the fuck it is I have for a life anymore. Well, my addiction is still running full enough that I'm having trouble to find time to play. But, all right, so I think the Prussians go first. They have reinforcements. By the way I interpret the rules as written, I'm going to have to bring somebody on. In order to move, you're going to want it to be... Again, I don't know about the game turn marker, but you're going to want it to be a speedy unit of some sort or another. I don't know precisely what I'm trying to do, you know. Let's take a look at what the modifiers to combat are. Attacking and defending a bridge, flank, infantry support, fresh cav support. Okay, so that's part of it. What about the impact of a zone of influence? When a friendly unit moves into an enemy zone of influence, the friendly unit must cease movement. Fresh cav can ignore it. Exhausted has to enter it. Yeah, so I don't know what happens. I don't know how it'll play out if, say, I bring in a cav and charge it up to that cav division and slap it against it. Is that what I want to do? Is it going to pin the cav? It will pin the cav. So that's of some interest. And you don't get to mix combat and movement. By which I mean all the movement happens before any of the attacks happen. So there's no breakthroughs or anything like that going to happen here. So I think I'll start off with a cav and see how this works. 1, 2. Gotta look on my non-existent TEC. I really ought to draw one up, but towns, nothing. Bridges are the biggie. No. Okay. 3. I'm not in a road crossing this, from what I can tell. I don't know if that's intentional. 4, 5, 6. And I've moved adjacent to the Austrian unit, for whatever that means. That'll put me on the Austrian turn. I'm going to flip this over to remind me, because I will probably be leaving partway through this. We're going to go into a lot of detail as I stumble with the system, right? All right, so it appears that one of my cav has been engaged. You don't know what I want to do about that. I mean, I really just don't know. So one of the things is, there's not anything I can do. I can't trigger combat or something at this point. So unlike games like Lee versus Grant or Korean War, I'm not going to have a capability to try to mass support against something and then launch an attack and you know, threaten. So one of the neat things about that game is you could threaten something with a piece and kind of do go-like maneuvers where you're next to something but you're threatening to do something else, and your opponent has to react to two things and has to make a choice which one they're doing, and then you take advantage of the one that they, you know, couldn't respond to. Don't really feel like this gives you anything of that line, so why would I want to move closer to something? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. If I do move into an enemy zone of influence, which is 2 hexes out, that drops me down to slow. Now, is the river impassable? I think so, yeah. Yeah, assuming this is a major river. I'm not sure. This looks like a major river. Is there a minor river? I don't see any minor river. There's swamps. I'm beginning to suspect that this is the swamp. Because, well, there's these two. But they talk about swamp hexsides. Which, you know, I assume these have many swamp hexsides. But I think this is the only major river. Again, no key available here. This stuff I have to guess at. So that means that the river is not really something I can cordon by just like, I can't just plug the bridges. Although that would do something. So, do I want to move up against this? I do that and the Prussians can move against me, or they know they've got my good unit pinned, which maybe I don't want. I think the Austrians are just going to move here. I only have one movement point with that unit. That gets me in better defensive terrain, which may or may not be good. I don't know, because the Prussians can move here and be in good defensive terrain themselves. And again, well, where's my headquarters? My Prussian headquarters is hiding over here, which is not sufficient. So hold on, as I know they're not going to be attacking this way. But I put zones of influence out to here. Yeah, let's do this. We'll see what happens from it. You know, this is reminding me, this is more off the rails, but this is reminding me a little bit of Soissons, which I did recently. It's very, very hard to react to a game in which you're really not at all sure what the fuck you're supposed to be doing and should be doing. Now, I gotta tell you, when I first started wargaming, that was kind of the case. And you know what my reaction was? It came damn close to, I can't handle this. You know, it's just, it's too much. Now, I started with the wrong games. I think I started with Stonewall. And then I moved to something relatively light. Napoleon at Waterloo, the freebie. And that allowed me to play a bunch of the other games that I picked up at the same time. And then, you know, once I was familiar with kind of the idea of hex movement and CRTs and stuff like that, Stonewall actually made more sense than any of the others, because it was directly trying to model fire and, you know, stuff like that, not just saying, hey, there's points, units have combat strength and whatnot. But here I feel a lot of that same, what the hell am I doing? Now, let's look at Prince Albert here. This attack has foiled that command. I'm not going to be able to pull away. I'm in a zone of control, so I don't think even Cav can get out of that, if I recall correctly. Correct. So I'm stuck there, and I'm going to have trouble getting units there. And where's my other headquarters? My other headquarters is up here. These guys are part of that. Now, I don't have to move as fast as possible to get to them. I just have to constantly move closer. But that means if I move here, I can't go off and support this. This hex row, though, is mine for safety, so I can move up as far as that, I guess. You know, whatever that means. And this could take hours and hours, as far as I can see, to move the unit. It's just, I don't know, because same situation with Korean War. It feels like, you know, why is the turn going to end? Well, in that game, and in Lee versus Grant, units flip over and they can't be used anymore. Here, the only thing that makes units not able to be used anymore is they've entered an enemy zone of control. Now, since there's no terrain objectives, that's okay, I guess. All right, what do I do next? Gosh, I don't know. And remember, these aren't units. That's hard to remember. They're sitting on the board looking like units. My command is unfortunately here, which means I can't even cross this bridge. And even if I start here, I've got to cut down this way. Bad move. Yeah, that... Well, I made the choice to try to cut around this way. What the hell is this? Landwehr Guard? Maybe Grenadiers? I don't know. Either way, it's not something you would think Landwehr would have. There's also things like this 1R here. I don't know what that means. It's just part of the unit designation as far as I can tell, but... I guess I'll move a Landwehr because I don't want to commit too much. But I can't move through hexes, so... Yeah, I don't know. Let's make something in between. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll put it on the Austrian side. And, you know... I'm going to put a die up here to remind me because to look up there. I feel like I'm just bumbling around. I feel like I'm playing blind man's bluff. Eventually, hopefully by the time I'm through this scenario, I'll have some kind of idea of what the game's trying to express, and you know, and how to make things work in it. But right now, I just feel lost, you know? I'm not smart enough, usually, to figure these things out on my own. The I go, you goes feel more intuitively reachable, not just because they're what I'm used to, but I don't know. They just feel like you're able to make a plan, push that forward, figure out what it's going to do, and then you see if it does it or not. Here, my plan and what I want to do is all being interfered with by the enemy. It's interleaved. It's like a chess game where I move a piece, he moves a piece, I move a piece. We could get into a situation that, like in chess or Go, you're just doing the same moves back and forth because neither player wants to perform a certain action, wants to limit their options. They want the other person to make the move to contact or whatever, presumably. I can really see that happening because you lose movement points when you move into a zone of influence. So, but your move to your options are very, very limited because of where you had to put your command thingy. Now, here's one question. Was the choice, I'm not sure about the sequence of play here, was the choice, headquarters placement was before the bombardment placement. That's important because that means where the Prussians placed their headquarters, I at least have some idea of where I might want to interdict. Again, that doesn't seem like a very powerful use of artillery. And one of my few advantages in the game is I have... You know, I forgot to do something. So the Prussians started with 12 artillery, but they got an extra point, an extra 2 points this turn. So honestly, we have the same amount of artillery points, for whatever that matters. Yeah. Anyway, my brain can't handle like trying to figure out what I'm trying to do with either side. I feel like maybe I'd be better off playing this for the first time opposed, for the simple fact that, like, at least I'd have an opponent who I can pretend that they have, you know, some kind of vague understanding and I can react to that. But yeah, it's very, very hard to face a game. You know, when I played Go for the first, not just the first time, but the first couple of years, teaching myself just by the rules, not by, gee, does this make sense or not? You know, what is the game about? I didn't get what the game was about. You know, I was creating lines like I would in a game of Twixt, and I feel like when faced with something like this, I'm going to get that same kind of thing. You know, it almost feels like there need to be some kind of designer notes or something to explain how you would play this, because it's just so different. Like, what do you do to express your units and what they're trying to do? Yeah. And to me, that feels like, well, now the whole game rests upon one of these puzzles of, well, what's sort of the vague idea of how you try to do things? I don't know. Anyway, that's enough for tonight. I moved a couple of pieces. Vietnam also did this to me. Those VG games that were, you know, playing around with how do you express, you know, the military situation in a way that's very, very different, you know, and maybe we gain something, maybe we don't. Well, some of those very different games gelled very easily. So, you know, things like plotted movement, that made sense to me right away. Pulsed movement a la SFB and Car Wars made sense to me right away. It just seemed like, you know, there I'm getting the, hey, the world works this way and this is closer to the reality than your, you know, I go, you go, or whatever. Chitpull? Chitpull always left me shrugging my shoulders. I'm not convinced that it works, you know? It's like one command moves really quickly and another command then moves really quickly and does what it does. And it's just like the weirdness of the turn interaction has been sliced up into similarly weird components, you know, or pieces. Well, with this, it feels a little bit more, and the other Pulse games do too, a little bit more like that. It feels like you've sliced up what was a big set of, you know, a monolithic turn, moving, fire, conducting combat, etc., into a bunch of little turns, and I'm not sure it makes sense, but it may provide something interesting. So, for example, a unit comes marching down, this cav moves there. Well, what has it done? It's ahead of these other units, so I know what it's doing as the enemy before the other units do. Now, of course, as the player controlling it, these other units are in motion and probably under their commands, and the fact that I can change their commands feels sort of like LAN or War of the Ring, the modern version, the modern game of that, FFGs or whatever. And I know it's under different ownership now, and different printing company, but it feels kind of like I don't necessarily know where they are. I know how far they might have gone, but it's like everything's not moving at once. There's not one set of orders. Now, but it does interleave the different different unit orders. I don't know. I'm trying to decide, do I want to move another piece or two? Do I want to try to see if there's any fucking thing I can get out of this very easily? I also don't remember what I moved, and it doesn't matter. You know? It looks like reserves are probably important, which to me means, let's say I'm the Austrians, I might want to pull this back, because I think it's too far forward and it's my good unit, you know, on that front. I don't want that too close. It's still in command range, so that's okay. So we go back to the Prussians, and you know, I just have no fucking clue. I might get to a point where I can't bring pieces on because I've clogged the path too much. It's not clear whether or not I can stack while moving. That was another issue. I assume you can, but I don't know. Let's get this guy moving, I guess. 1, 2. Oh, I forgot to mention this. This little tear here, and I may have another one that had it. It's not that big a deal. You see this in a lot of the older games, and every now and then, some of the GMT games that aren't all that old. Sometimes the paper tears a little bit. But the die cutting it was side mounted, really, really weird, like very loose on one side of almost each counter and very, very, and firmer on the other side. And it was all within, the counter sheet was within this baggie. This is just printer stuff, but the die cutting was like set to only cut one side fully and to try to maintain the other side more, which ends up kind of nice because you have less nub than you do on your normal side mounted stuff. You only have one side that has a real nub basically, but this particular one, the paper on the side with the nub that was better attached, didn't really get cut through very well, so it tore a little bit. That kind of shit happens sometimes. It seems like some of the printing die cutting techniques have really, really advanced greatly, and this feels from an older era. 1, 2, 3, 4, I guess. All right, we'll flip back to the Austrians, and this time I'll go away. My battery's almost dead. I have no idea what I'm fucking doing, and I kind of feel like I may not end the turn simply because players may do things like, pull back a little bit, fit a little piece around, just shit like that that's just delay of game constantly. Because I don't know what I'm trying to do, And when I put on a different hat, my hat is, well, let's see what the enemy does. Because that's what I would do if I was playing this opposed. I would very much play a reactive game, and I feel like, these guys, yeah, it's obvious I need to move them forward, but I think there should be more distinguishment between the headquarters and the regular units, like maybe, I don't know what, but like a different color, like maybe kind of a gray tone for the Austrian ones and a paler blue for the Prussian. Just, they look too much like units, and that's confusing. In fact, the best thing might be, although this would be, a real pain, you couldn't get a printer to do this. You'd have to, special order stuff that's too expensive for this I think is done print on demand. I think the best answer would be something very, very different. First of all, shape might be a difference. Change it to circles or something. That might help. In fact, it definitely would. But I was thinking something like a tiddlywink or something that has the numbers printed on it and which side or whatever, but it's, just so clearly not one of the regular die cut units. But possibly circular counters would work. There's a lot of extra space on the counter sheet, so it should have been possible to do something along those lines. Anyway, I'm done for now. My battery's almost dead. Actually, when you're facing a new system like this, I guess you just have to go with your gut and try some crap. And some of the crap I'm going to try, I got the Austrians getting the next action. Let's try to bring some of this cavalry reserve up into place to maybe block the bridges and make it harder. At least it'll force the Prussians to do something. I can't move straight across right now. Even with speedy movement, well, maybe I can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can get to there. That doesn't really help. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can get to there with that. So yeah, let's charge our cav forward, and meanwhile the Prussians have to bring these reserves in. So I'm going to be able to move right up and kind of block whatever army this is, the Red Army. I can't remember the names of them. So that there I feel like I'm doing something. And part of the reason for this is I didn't get a lot of sleep. I got a couple hours and woke up a beautiful rainy day and made coffee, dangerous stuff for me, and well, we'll see how it all turns out. But I feel now like I've got a goal, and that AP that was killing me before with the I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do is now giving way. But I had to get myself into this peculiar state in order to do that. So with the Prussians, well, I got to keep bringing reinforcements in. That's what I have to do. I think I want to start bringing some of these guys in because of where I put my headquarters. I can't really. Well, that's a stream. I wish I had a TEC here. Let's put this back here and look for. So this is this is not a major river, I've decided. No key, so who knows. This is a swamp, though, to cross. And that costs 2 extra movement points. Would I maybe want to do that? So this is a nothing as far as I can tell, right? It's not a major river. It doesn't have a swamp. It's just on there. And this is strange. Where it talks about major rivers, it should also talk about the fact that minor rivers have no effect on play. That would help solidify things. Or this is a major river and I don't know why there's swamp hexsides along it and all kind of other stuff. So I just don't know. So yeah, what happens if I come in here? 1, 2, 3. I can't cross quickly there, so I'll come in here. 1, 2, 3. That's as far as I could get. Now, eventually I can move these other pieces, but I've got to keep bringing my reinforcements in. That brings me back to the Austrians, and now it's time for me to make my decision. Do I want to defend that? Well, where's my fucking headquarters? Is this my headquarters? No. Here's my headquarters. I can move there because I'll still be within range of it, but I can't get into here. That would be too far. I put my headquarters in a dumb place if I want to cross the river and try to hold the bridgehead. I think that's kind of historical. I seem to remember something where, like, the Austrian troops fell back from... I may be thinking of something that was earlier in the campaign. Okay, so I'm going to shoot these guys up there, flip it back to a Prussian turn. Prussians are running out of spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. That gets them. Now what with the Austrians? All right, I have just moved this into... let's see what happens. I moved into an enemy zone of influence. The friendly unit, fresh cav, can ignore them. Friendly units in march formation that begin in an easy OI and who move out of one can stay into march. So I didn't affect his movement. He can still push up this way. I might be able to get some kind of interference in that direction as well. So I may want to consider that. Yeah, we're on the Austrian side. Let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gives me a lot of flexibility there. Back to the Prussians. 1 more reinforcement and then I'm allowed to play. Oh. 1, 2, 3. I can go to here. That gives me, you know, some capability at some point to cross the stream. Puts me back to the Austrians. Well, now things are getting hard again. Well, maybe not. I can move to here. That creates some clutter. Do I want to do that? I think so. Feels like kind of a waste to just move a cav one space, but I've just created a mess. You know, the Prussians are going to have a harder time dealing. All right, now I'm on the Prussian side of things, and I really do have a mess. And I'm going to walk away a little bit because I'm again APing. I don't know what to do, you know. Do I try to force things here? Is there a reason? Or do I concentrate down here in the south, where I think the Austrians are not in good shape, to be honest. Now this is kind of interesting. Yeah, he's not really impacted by it. He can withdraw, you know. If he does, he has to go towards Prince Albert and look for him in his can. To how unique the system is, the pulsing just makes me wander away more easily, because the same thing happens again with things like Vietnam. You saw it if you watched my vids for that, but also a game that I'm very, very comfortable with, the Victory Game Civil War game, I think by Eric Smith, which is just, you know, it's a fantastic game, but the fact that, like, turns are kind of long and and pulses are short, and pulses, like, break things up in a reasonable way, it's pretty easy to get up and wander away in the midst of it. That wouldn't happen in an opposed game, obviously. Anyway. I'm on the Prussians trying to figure out what to do next. I don't have any requirements anymore. Everything's on the board. So now it's time to start setting up my situation. There's a problem happening over here where I'm going to have difficulty breaking across the river. I'll be in a... Wait a minute. Let's look up zone of influence, because it's only infantry that projects a zone of influence. That's important. Notably because this is not going to slow anything down until it comes into contact. 1, 2, and then I can't cross. Okay. Am I worried about a more robust cordon? Well, let's look at where the commander is. They're not going to be able to put anything here unless it's from this command, and that command's got a long way to walk to get that far. So let's focus down here. Okay, I think woods cost 2. Not a zone of influence. Let's get him in place here, because that creates sort of a buffer that'll kind of slow other units down. Not, these are cav, but if the infantry, well, the infantry can't go that way. Oh well. You move a piece, you touch a piece, you move it. Something like that. All right, on the Aust, mainly because I can't tell you, is it, you know, good or bad? What am I doing? On the Austrian side, this is zone of influence world here, so I can't really move that close. Shall we get something up on the border here? Again, I can't. But I could put something here, stopping pieces. I don't know how valuable all of this is. This isn't a Prussian unit. Let's move this up 1, 2, 3 to there. I can't move any further because I'm not within range of my command. And I'm not moving closer to my command. Huh. Well, I think as bad as can be done has been done up here, so I'll continue playing down here, I guess. I don't want to move my best unit yet. What happens when you move into a zone of control? Anything? Yeah. They must flip to battle formation. Okay, I thought so, but... I can't flip this. Now, I'm beginning to debate whether or not, whether I should have left this in combat formation. I thought, well, I need to move a lot. Yeah, it just gives me a longer axis I could move along. Oh, this guy's not doing anything. 1, 2, 3 into a zone of influence. He'd be at risk there. If I move him here, he's right on the line. Let's look at the effects on combat. Again, player aid would be useful here. I don't know if there's going to be one intended. Flank infantry support per infantry is worth a point. 3.42. Why would this be in 3. Why would this be all the way here? Infantry flank support. I'm really confused because this ought to be integrated into the attack stuff. Like, I'm not really sure why this stuff would be way back here. It's like there should be a sequence of play that's abbreviated, and there should be a place where all the information is. It's exactly what it would look like. Didn't really need a reference going back there, I think. So what am I doing? I don't know. This is where I don't want to go. All right, we'll go there. Back to the Austrians. So the entire Austrian locus is heading up this way. Is there any supply in this game? You know, I saw something that looked like supply or something, but I don't know if it was this game. I don't think so. I don't think there's any restriction. I can let myself be completely cut off and surrounded. There might be, implications to that I don't like, but yeah. Well, if that's the case, let us, I guess, get some of our cav moving because we don't want them to be cut off down there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yay. Again, I'm not sure what I'm doing. Just moving pieces around at random, it feels like. Okay, well, we've got a good force on here. Is there any kind of defensive bonus in combat? Flank infantry support is for attackers. Fresh cavalry goes for either. So I could have put some cav in, which could conceivably help. But that cav would have to be C6.2. Okay. Okay, drugs are bad. Attacking units get +1 for each in the defender's Izak. Defending units get +1 for each fresh cav adjacent to the hex they occupy. This is interesting because cav wouldn't actually need to be next to the combat unit. Defending units get a +1 DRM for each fresh cav adjacent to, so it's like, I don't know what the horses are doing. Intermingling in and supporting, I really don't know. Anchoring the flank, it doesn't seem like it. Seems a little odd, but okay. So what are the Prussians up to? Bring more force to bear here, maybe? Or worry about this? Do I want to freeze another cav unit? I don't know. Yeah, let's freeze that other cav unit. Keep it from moving up. I don't have to attack. So, you know, whatever it is the Austrians are up to, I'm stopping it. And that feels very much like the kind of decision making I would make. Even if my opponent doesn't know what the hell he's doing, I'm preventing him from doing potentially not great things. Okay, this is not going to help. Additional infantry just doesn't do me any good. I could throw the cav down into here. That would conceivably do something nice. Maybe. But I can't because I'm going in the wrong direction. I've already moved my cav up there. So yeah, I'm screwed with that. I don't know if I want to move. I guess we get infantry moving. Again, I think I can move through units. Don't know for sure. Flip that over. Don't know what I'm doing. Just moving. Moving because I can. I'm not locked in yet. All right, Prussians get to throw more forces into play. I'll continue maneuvering down there to get... I'm planning on trying to wipe out a couple of cav units. That's kind of my goal. And there's not much the Austrians can do about it at this point. I could pass and try to restrict the damage. That might not be a bad idea. Alternatively, I've got some attacks I could launch. That's still allowable. Okay, Prussians will continue trying to force things over here. 1, 2, 3 would block me there. Let's do that. I want more fresh infantry in the way. I'm out of range if I go up there. 1, 2, flip. And you can see it's pretty quick if you come up with a reason for doing something. The hard part is, why am I doing anything? And that's gonna, I guess, develop. This guy's in a kind of stupid place. If I move next to the infantry, if I move up here, I get blocked, so I'll stop there. Back up to the Austrians. Do we want to bring more in? Yeah, of course we do. Okay, we're building a threat up there. The Prussians may need to do something about that. It may be more important than moving more forces up into this area. Am I cheating? No, because I have this big movement maneuver zone, which is what's allowing me to attack across a broader front. So it's hard to bring forces into play. What I'd like to do, I think, is get some cav up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know if that did what I wanted. I want to get cav adjacent to this to give it more supporting defense. That brings me on to the Austrians. Do we want to pass yet? Are we all set? Or do we need to bring more forces up to anywhere? Well, I mean, I kind of like these guys being here. This isn't going to do me much good. I'm going to pass with the Austrians, because that'll get me closer to the end of the turn. Okay. Which means I go here. And the Prussians are going to roll a die. +1 for each friendly unit. Not in. Oh God, they're going to get so many moves because there's so many units that aren't in a zone. But each one basically gets to move once, and anything that passes gives another unit a second move or whatever. All right. Well, we made our decision. What's not in an enemy zone? 1, 2. What kind of enemy zone? Zone of control. And nothing's off the board. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. +9 to the die roll. We get a total of 11. I don't know how many pieces there are total. It might be possible you can go above 19 if somebody just passes early on. All right, now we've got to decide what's important. There's no defensive advantage to bringing more infantry into play here. There's only an offensive advantage, which maybe I want to do. I think so. A possibility of hitting this cav if I do it early. 1, 2, 3. That's one of these. None of this matters anymore. We're here. Well, I got to keep track of what game turn I'm in. I guess I got to play out all my pieces. Otherwise I'm gonna lose my position, my time, whatever it is. I don't know how vital it is to move him. Do we want to launch an attack somewhere? Here I'm in a zone of influence, I think. Do they cross swamps? I don't know. Let's find swamps. Swamps block zones of control and zones of influence. Okay, so I could come close and then cross, and that would put me in an interesting position. 1, 2, no zone of control there. 3, I flip. That kills another one. And I force the river. I'm allowed to attack across bridges. Zones of control and zones of influence do not cross them, though. So I think I would get no advantage by putting a force there as a supporting force. And it's a big minus to attacking that way. So can we get this way? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another one. Oop. So that's 2 of these. I'm at 8. All right. This cav. How do calves affect attacks? Again, you know, because there's things that I don't expect here, like cav floating around behind your unit supports it. And I can understand why. I can make a hand-wavy argument about that. I have to constantly look back because nothing is intuitive yet. Okay, so fresh cav support. Well, it sends me to that 6.2, which is this breakdown, and that really should be in here. It needs to be, especially if there's a pull-out, you know, a player aid. Attacking units receive +1 for each fresh cav in the defender's enemy zone of control. Okay. What did that mean? I don't remember. Oh, because I want to attack here, I would need to get across. Can I cross swamps with cav? Or is that different? Let's flip back here because there's no... Units may not attack across swamps. It looks like I can move through them, though. Although it does say while in march formation. Cav don't have march formation as far as I can tell. They just have blown or tired and not tired. So where did I want to get him? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I want to get him here, and that's a lot of movement. I might want to put this one here just to give me more benefit. This is the hex that looks like it's under attack. Of course, my cav might be under attack if I move to here, and then it'll be unsupported. Let's move this cav. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's here. Let's move this one. Let's move this one. All that cav is going to somehow help my defenses. Don't ask me why. I got a potential attack here. Or do I? I don't know. I've got a supporting unit, but it's not in my zone. Is it in somebody's? Flanking infantry. Okay, that's C 3.42. Funny that the cav thing sends me here, and the infantry sends me way back here. There's something... Yeah, see here, the in-depth description is not here, whereas the in-depth description is here. And again, there's this. During combat, each attacking friendly unit in the EZOC of an enemy grants. Okay, so I don't have to be adjacent to my own unit. In something like Lee versus Grant, you had to be adjacent to the enemy and adjacent to the friendly unit. So you could get like you could get a command of one unit flanked by 2 units to make an attack. You'd get additional advantages, and this went over to the great campaigns of the American Civil War as well, by getting something behind it, so that you had it completely surrounded or whatever. So I don't know what I'm trying to do. Most of my units cannot move. I could get somebody here. He doesn't really help me there. Whereas putting something here does. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Move this. Am I cheating? I'm cheating. Son of a bitch. Okay, I cheated all over the place because this headquarters here. I don't know how to undo this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 1. Somewhere back here, and then here, that's 2 more. This couldn't be here. I don't know where he was. He was in 2607, which is over here, so that's 1 more. Okay. So yeah, this is fucked. Well, that kind of screws my whole plan, doesn't it? Move him, put him on the I can move segment. Yeah, there's really not a lot I can do because I didn't have this on maneuver, which gives me an extra star in combat, but not for him. At least I get first swing. Alright, I guess we move this. Where's he heading? He can go all over the place because he's got a fast movement thing. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, I guess. Get more support into there. I got 5 more moves. I'm just going to be shifting stuff around. I can get that far, but no further. I could cross the river here. That doesn't really help me. No, I can't, because I'd be moving. I have to move towards this if I'm out of command. So I'll go here. This I can get in command. That doesn't hurt me. I've got like one more move. Like in Soissons, I'm assuming I always have to move towards my headquarters if I'm out of command. How is this worded? It must move closer until they are within its range. Yeah, so I think H hex has to be closer. So here would be closer, here would be closer, here would be closer. Let's do that. I don't know what it's going to mean. All right. And I think we're done. Which means we go to the attack phase. And I do not have the soul for that right now. But nor the battery power, it would seem. So we'll get to that. I'm probably going to have to go back to sleep. The assumption is the attack phase is going to be a whole hell of a lot easier. It may still last quite a few die rolls, depending on how the combat actually works. But, you know, in terms of, hey, the dice could just come out as draws, and you want to keep launching those attacks. So I've got attacks here and here. The Prussians get the first attack. I've got attacks here and here. I don't know how much I really want to land. I don't know how important it is for me to land those blows first. I don't think very. So then we come up here and let's take a look. Well, if I could move this cav, that would do something for me. How is this unit? You know, it's in march formation because it never moved. It positioned itself, somebody moved into its zone, and that doesn't appear. Well, no, units in march formation in an enemy zone of control must immediately flip. I think that covers this situation. So I think these guys actually are in battle formation. It doesn't really make much difference. They weren't allowed to move anyhow. But I think that was supposed to happen when I moved up against them. And everywhere else, I think we're okay. Okay. Now, it's weird because you can attack across a bridge, but I guess you do it potentially in march formation. Again, it doesn't make much difference because you're not really allowed to move away when you're in battle, when you're engaged, when you're in an enemy zone of control. You're only allowed to withdraw early in the turn. So here, what units am I worried about and want to budge? This is a possibility to get that cav out of the way here. This is a possibility. I think I'm more threatened here. So this infantry is going to attack. I got my headquarters here. So that is going to give me 3 stars. And I'm going to have this unit. So first thing we have is artillery support. It's only cav that I'm attacking. Now there's a limitation on artillery with cav, but I think it's when the cav is attacking. Not sure where I find this. Cav units cannot choose to receive artillery support and will always choose no support. Okay, so the cav will not be firing artillery. I think the Prussians are also going to choose to fire nothing because I've got the advantage and I just want that out of there. Killing it would be great, but I don't need the artillery right now. Okay, so artillery support, none of that happens. And that's what A through D of the attack phase is. What's left of the attack phase? E, which is all this stuff. It feels to me like this should be one thing. This should be one thing. And honestly, this is part of that one thing. But yeah, I don't know. And then those things should be at the same layer as the after effects and whatever. And I've kind of discussed this before, but yeah, there's something really odd about the whole organization of this rulebook. Beyond all those colored stripes every couple lines. Okay, so let's see what we got. No artillery was supported, no bridge. Flank infantry support, only for the attacker. I've got +1 for that. Fresh cavalry support, both the attacker and defender get fresh cavalry support. Well, the attacker doesn't have any cav that's in the enemy zone of control. The defender matches this, +1 DRM for each fresh cav adjacent to the hex they occupy. No, the defender cannot receive it. Sorry. The attacker is the one where I had the question, and it's when attacking cavalry, when the attacking units are cavalry, do they get the fresh cavalry support for themselves? I would say no, but it's not clear. Okay, so where were we again? We're up there. So far, I think we're at +1 for the attacker. ER, we're at +3 for the attacker for those 2 stars. Headquarters support, we're at +4 for the attacker, +2 for the defender. That nets out at a +2 for the attacker. There's no reason you can't do it that way. So we've got 7 to 4. That's a 3-point advantage. Blown. Okay. So this cav unit is blown. It disappears. The infantry unit attacked it. And this is interesting. If the defender vacates the hex and the attacking unit is not in an EZOC, then the attacker must immediately perform an AAC. Nothing says that I have that option because I took the hex. So that may not be the intention. Oh, these can come back in 2 turns. There's something a little weird about this, but I'm not sure that there's anything that specifies when you return blown units whether they just keep pushing down. I'm looking for it. Okay, so this is the combat section of the sequence of play. Then we hit the end phase, and nothing here talks about getting blown units back. Somewhere you're allowed to get 2 blown units back, but it's not in the sequence of play in the game. It's somewhere else, I think. And now I'm just not fucking finding it. As I flip and flip, so this says place it on the turn 2 turns ahead, but something tells me that I'm allowed to get back only a limited number of pieces. This seems to imply I can get back everything. I can't find the rule that says I only get a limited number of pieces back right now. I know I read that. I can't find it. Let's get this off the board because that does come back into play. So I don't think I get an advance, and we blew that one away. Now the Austrians get to come back with an attack. Well, the Prussians could make an attack here. That doesn't really matter. This is where there's a potential of an interesting counterattack. I might also want to knock this cav out before they get a chance to affect me. This is not a command unit, even though it kind of doesn't look like a unit because it has no stars or anything. This is, and it says command on it. This is actually a 1-point landwehr. I think this is more important. Cav versus cav, that means there's not going to be any artillery fighting. even though this cav is surrounded by all kinds of infantry, out of supply from, you know, what would normally be rules, etc., it looks like I'm just attacking at a +1. Now, am I allowed to attack if there's no headquarters? Okay. Because I'm outside headquarters range. I don't see any restriction that requires me to be in headquarters range to launch an attack. So I'm at +1. This is in march formation, so it's not giving any stars. So the Austrian cav attacks at +1. I get a +1 total. The unit with the lowest result must retreat. If it cannot retreat, treat as a blown result. We got to look up the retreat rules. 3 hexes away. If the second hex is defensible, I can retreat to that. Anything about orders? Direction? Anything like that? Not really. So 1, 2, 3 gets me to there. Now, it's important, exhaust cavalry. Here the cavalry provided a DRM. It did not. Defending cav units are not flipped to exhausted if attacked. If attacked... Okay, so now this is interesting. Any cav that provided a DRM in combat, I'm beginning to lean towards that fresh modifier does apply to the unit that's launching the attack. Because otherwise the attacking cav doesn't get a resistance. So instead of +1, I'd be at +2. That's the same result. Here, the defender, well, we see fresh cavalry support. That doesn't help us. We've got to go find it under the cav rules. And then we have to flip the page because this one is just a little further away. Defending units get a +1 DRM for each fresh cav unit adjacent to the hex they occupy. Okay, so there was no defensive bonus here. That's clear. That unit would not have been flipped, which applies to this. This unit does get the additional +1, so that puts me up to a +2. Same result here, but this unit flips. It keeps its star. I don't advance because I'm in a zone. Okay. Oh boy. All right, we're back to the Prussians. And, you know, flipping through the rules back and forth, and I know these are in a rudimentary stage. They're going to change, but I have to point out the things that are bothering me about this because this may be far enough along that these things are going to gel in this kind of format, and I just want to make sure that, you know, it's clear this is not organized well at this point. Okay. So we're on a Prussian attack again. And again, I'm not that worried about what the Austrians could do to me here. So let's go back up here. This is the one that I was worried about. I can launch an attack here. I'm too far away to get an attack bonus. But let's do this against this cav. Okay. I'm again attacking cav, so I choose not to use artillery. They cannot choose to. No bridge. Flank infantry support. The attacker gets +1 per unit, so that's a +1. Fresh cavalry support. Again, that does not apply to the defender no matter what, but I think it does apply to a single attacking cav. ER stars, I'm up to +3 for the Prussians. Headquarters support, 1, 2, 3, +2 for the Austrians, and nothing for the Prussians. I'm in March? No. No. If I was attacking with this unit, I would get that. So it's +3 to +2, so it nets out at +1. The nice thing is once you get the modifiers resolved, The combat table is really easy, but the modifiers are, you know, not too bad. Okay, so I'm 4 to 2, that gives me a +2. That means this unit has to retreat. I don't think it can. May never enter a hex with another friendly or enemy unit. Looks like I can go through a ZOC. If retreating unit cannot move further away from the enemy unit, cannot avoid entering an EZOC. Okay, so this is interesting. The enemy zone of control is not mentioned up here, but it is way down here. So I think this unit is destroyed. Well, it's blown, which means it goes here. I'm in a zone of control, so I can't advance. Back to the Austrians. Maybe we'll see some artillery at some point. Okay. For the Austrians, I have this guy in the woods. He's facing something stronger than him. Doesn't want to attack. I probably want to launch this attack simply because I don't think there are any others that I actually want to unleash. This isn't bad. I'm actually at an advantage here. But nothing's going to change. Yeah, I think we're all set. So from here, I'll launch this attack. This is my best attack. Okay. Now, I have a very limited amount of artillery on both sides. And I don't know if it's worth it. So here I'm looking at +2, +3 for adjacency, +4, +5 to +1. I've got a +4. From the Austrian side, I am not going to put artillery. The Prussian side, I may need this to save this unit. So on odds, I'm going to throw some artillery in. Okay, I am. And we would reveal that by both players hiding these and revealing them simultaneously. Okay, so what was I at? +2, +3, +4, +5 to +3. So it's +2 for the Austrians. The Prussians threw some defensive fire in order to prevent losing a unit. Okay, what did I say? +5 to +3, so it's +2. So it is a -3. The Austrian attacking unit is blown. And again, now I definitely have to look up and find that, hey, if more than 2 units are blown, that's all you bring in per turn, and whether or not those push ahead, which I think they do, but I can't find the rule organization and of the rule book. And again, all these brown lines, no memory whatsoever where I would find it. It's just a bunch of brown stripes to me. Somehow text forms shapes that I can understand, especially when it's in nice little columns, especially with white space to the side. But okay, back to the Prussians. I'm doing my Joe Biden impersonation. What the fuck is up with that shit? Anyway, for the Prussians, well, we repulsed the Austrians somehow. We do not get to advance after combat, right? It's only the attacker who gets to. I'm not going to attack here. Here, they're in defensive terrain. If I had a cav adjacent to me, which I think I do across the swamp, believe it or not. Let's look this up. Attacking units get them for each... No, in the defender's enemy zone of control. Defending units get them for each defending cav adjacent. So this cav over here is providing defensive support across the stream that it would have a hell of a time getting across to support. Again, not sure that's intended, but it feels a little weird. I gotta swap batteries out. Weird as this feels kind of like the old classics did. Like a game of pushing more than eliminating units. Pushing, and especially pushing where you've got their retreat lines cut off, okay? Makes sense. That's how you get, units to surrender and whatnot, and most of the casualty numbers from the battles weren't enough to really be able to say, oh, that unit's just wrecked. It might be wrecked for a little while, might have trouble recovering, but as long as it wasn't cut off from its, retreat route, it was in okay shape. And as opposed to the kind of firepower type games that I'm used to, and that I've only seen for this particular battle in like Age of Rifles or something, because nobody covered these guys back in the day. There's probably one out there now. Okay. So who are we on? We're on, I think, the Prussians. It doesn't make a hell of a lot of difference at this point in the battle round. Looking for an attack. This is one I want to make. That cav looks very vulnerable. There's nothing... The Austrians can't, like, throw more reinforcements in or anything. The battle lines are drawn, and now we're resolving them in this push fight. So I attack from here. That's +2, +3, +4 to +1. Okay. Any limitation on artillery? It seems to me that you can fire your artillery whether you're in command or not. Now, maybe that's indicated somewhere back here or something. Again, it's so hard for me to kind of grasp in my head what's going on in the game and what it's representing, because it is alien. More than I can say, well, I don't get what's going on. But normally, to get a significant artillery support, you might need orders from up above, right? But I don't see anything when I flip through this that appears to require that. So yeah. And, obviously there's local guns as well, which is I'm assuming there's a certain amount of artillery firing. I'm assuming this is heavier batteries that are behind the lines rather than the stuff that's deployed with the units. But I'm not sure. They're ammo points, so I don't know. Maybe there was so little ammo. Okay. But the idea of committing a point at this point, rather than at some earlier point where I had to make the decision, obviously these are cav, they can't. If I had to make some decision, though, if that was an infantry, it looks like an infantry because it has a star on it. It's hard for me to tell just by the image. I don't process that as quickly as symbols do, as I do symbols, especially NATO symbols and such not. But I understand why they use pictures. I actually prefer them for this era. But yeah, I mean, the idea that like a unit that's cut off, I'm making the decision to have supplied it with enough artillery to fight a battle after the fact of it getting cut off, that's a little weird. Now, again, it could be heavier artillery firing. I don't think it is. I don't think we're talking about like Big Bertha coming back in time 50 years. No, there was some pretty big guns, but yeah, useful in a battlefield situation, a mobile battlefield situation? I don't think so. Okay. So what were we going to do? We were going to attack here 2, 3, 4, no, to 1. And the Austrians can't throw artillery. Again, the Prussians are not going to, so that's +3. We need to be on this side. So that's a 6. That gets me 2. This guy has to retreat. He doesn't have anywhere to retreat because zone of controls somehow or another affect that, even though that's not called out real quickly. So another unit bites the dust. Who launched the attack? He did. He must advance. Back to the Austrians. Anything? Here I'm at a slight advantage. Here I'm at a major advantage. I'll launch this attack. I'm at +2. Again, I'm not going to use my artillery And the Prussians are not going to use theirs to try to mitigate the results on this one. So that's 8-3. That's a +5. This unit has been eliminated. This corps moves forward. Now here's where I'm in trouble. These are worth victory points. These are not. I have to put this somewhere to indicate that it's destroyed. Okay. And again, if you're thinking like, you know, the old magazine games from SPI or whatever, they would have certainly found a space to put that, but the map is so tiny. The actual footprint on the map is so tiny. But, you know, you could use, you could take yourself an index card or something and write that and draw up the indications. But there's a lot of empty space there. Okay. That was an Austrian attack. Back to a Prussian attack. What about here? I'm at +1, +2 in the woods, which I think is a 2-point penalty. I look for woods rule, because obviously woods has to have its own header and a whole rule for this line. It's only 1. Well, I've got the advantage. The Austrians can't throw in artillery, might as well. So I'm at +1 against that. It could get lucky. At the very least, I should chase it away. I say 6-1, that's 4. It is blown. Lucky yet. Okay. Note that I'm almost leaving my zone of command, but that doesn't matter. I have to advance no matter what, the way the rules are written. Do the Austrians want to launch one here at +1? You know, why not? Why not? I'm not sure I want to be up this far. I'm not going to put artillery because I kind of like the idea of being forced to retreat. And the Prussians sure the hell aren't, because they want to use it to win a close battle somehow. So that's 4-2. That's going to be a retreat for this unit. Just has to go away. Can't enter a zone, so I can't go this way. But there's nothing. Okay. Now this is interesting. Retreating units may never enter a hex with another friendly or enemy unit. I'm allowed to move through this, though. So I'll fall back. Oh, what's this shit? So we've got our swamps, but here we have like woods hex sides. I'm guessing the deal with them is they're like a little bit of woods between 2 hexes. So they'll be treated as attacking, and like I've been attacking people in the woods and giving them the full benefit of it. Woods is not defined as hex sides here. They're hexes. And defending in the woods, I'm going to assume that this is treated as woods just between these hexes. But do both sides get the advantage for combat? What's up with that? I don't know. That's got to be better defined. Okay. Not that there's a lot of this, whatever the hell that is. It's a little spider claw. Back to the Pruskies. And so here I'm at even. Oh no, do I have a combat? I have a combat bonus here. But he's in the woods. I'm at even fighting there. I don't think I want to do that. I've trimmed the Austrian numbers down enough that I would rather wait a turn and see what happens. The Austrians might want to attack. All my attacks are gone here. Yeah, I'm done with the Prussians. I pass. At this point, just for the mechanical aspect, let's see what happens. After a player passes, the opposing player rolls a die. That's how many attacks they may make for the rest of the attack phase. Okay, so the Austrians have up to 6 attacks. Now, remember, some of these could have resulted in nothing. And you would keep devoting your die roll to that, indicating, yeah, I want to fight, I want to fight. And it might just not happen. And I'm not saying the fight doesn't happen, but no result comes of it. They're just casualties. And again, casualties probably aren't a big deal. Okay. So the Austrians have one place they could attack. It's here. I would be attacking into there at +2, and it's at +3. Without throwing artillery in, that would be a bad idea. I will hold off in that case. We have hit the end phase. Now, it says the current turn is over. Maybe you get your blown stuff back at the beginning of the turn. Let's find the sequence of play. Each game turn proceeds as follows. Blown unit return. That's where it is. Okay. That's why I couldn't find it. Starting with the Prussian, the players will return a maximum of 2 units blown. Yeah, so that's the 2. If more than 2 units are available for entry, the opposing player chooses which 2 units come back and the rest are eliminated. So the Austrians are going to lose 3 units out of this. Because they don't have the reserves to make up for the loss to cohesion that being blown represents. This is kind of the problem. I'm not sure. So like this movement from retreat, which basically causes no damage, or no damage, which is just like there's attrition going on the line, but neither side's really hurt, to blown, which feels like kind of routed away from the battlefield and maybe milling about and having trouble getting back together, to destroyed. The conjunction of those things seems a little weird. Okay, so that's the end of the first turn. We go to the second turn. We go up here to the sequence of play. I put my dice there. These stay where they are. This, I'm going to push up here. Yeah, so, I mean, I get 2 of these 4 or 5 units back, and the rest are gone. So it's not like every turn I can recharge units. There's definitely actual casualties happening here, but it's kind of weird how they're happening. You have to, yeah. I'm hoping you see what I mean by the system seems to be doing something kind of weird here, because first of all, I don't know what the enemy has somehow magically hunted down. Like somehow it's up to the enemy which of my units, which could have retreated fine on their own if there hadn't been a lot of fighting going on, the enemy has somehow pursued. Because that's what it feels like. If the enemy is choosing these pieces, the enemy has somehow pursued them, as far as I'm concerned. If the enemy is not choosing them, and the rules make it clear that the enemy is, then it would kind of represent, well, these are the units that I'm reinforcing and the others are just falling apart, turning into cadres, whatever, that I'm, maybe breaking in, changing their organization and moving them to other units as additional reinforcements to indicate the overall casualties of such a massive rout. But that's not what's going on. What's going on is something where the attacker has a say in which units are recovering. So they have done some sort of focus. If you break at enough places along the line, they have somehow influenced which units are going to not recover, right? And that feels a little like I'm not sure I understand the reasoning behind that. On the other side of it, it's still kind of problematic because, hey, we can stand on the line and fight a bloody, bloody battle, right? This is just one day of battle going on here. We can, if you look at like Gettysburg, approximately from the same period, you have, at Culp's Hill, just massive, massive firing and fighting, and at Cemetery early on. Just massive amounts of fighting along the same lines, huge amounts of casualties being generated, neither side's retreating, and yet those units were definitely impacted on the next day, So it's a little hard for me to understand what's being represented here by what seems like a retreat that's gotten a little harsher than a retreat would. Now, if they were eliminated because they couldn't retreat through an enemy zone or whatever, it'd be like, oh, that makes sense, they're captured, right? But no, they're blown. And then also, units can get blown directly from the combat table, which is somewhere under these dice and everything. And that also is like, well, okay, so these units have taken severe enough casualties that not only have they retreated, but they need to come back. But here, they're not available to be reformed if you blow enough units. It's not like... So what would make sense for that would be, hey, I get 2 units back, and then the remainder continue to be available to be reformed. Probably your situation on the map would snowball to such an extent that you'd never get them all reformed again. But if both sides are getting bloodied, there would be kind of a slowing of the combat as those units reform, and then you could have a highly attritional situation being represented. What is actually being represented, I have no clue. I cannot grasp what the game is trying to speak to. It's making stuff up. I just, And this is where designer's notes are really interesting. Now, there's a design commentary, but it's just talking basically about, hey, I used this before in Mars Tour. It was Mark Herman's design. Well, you can't just say Mark Herman thought of it, therefore it works, right? Now, maybe Mark Herman argues and defends these points in I guess these came out in a CSI magazine, the 2 games he made. Maybe he came up with it and did that. Or maybe it's just a cool system, and, he's been moving more and more away from simulating stuff. Great Battles of History, he certainly was deep, at least knees deep in simulating stuff, probably a lot farther. And, but since then, the CDGs, which came out earlier, a number of other things he's done, it feels like he's more moving away towards this, well, I want to make a neat game about something. But he's also been doing less tactical stuff. So I was expecting something that made more sense to me on the tactical level. And this game is really kind of blowing my mind. Initially, it blew my mind as to, I don't know what the fuck it's trying to express because I don't see it. I don't know what I should be doing. I don't know anything. It's just not clear to me. But now I'm beginning to see things, and my analysis is, I'm not convinced that this system actually is an accurate simulation in any way. Or I think that the holes that it's opening up may be worse than the things in command control that it's trying to fix. But, this is a pretty minor change, to change this from the units have to be fixed on that turn or they die, and they keep rolling. That would be a really minor change, and I think that would kind of make sense. And then maybe everything kind of makes sense. It feels like that particular thing is just so far out there that I can't explain it the way it's handled in the mechanism. That they should be coming back on a rolling basis. So, you know, I would get 2 back, and I don't know which side chooses. It kind of doesn't matter. It kind of doesn't matter. I could see where, you know, you could say, well, we really hit them hard, and the pursuit was better on these units, and we hit so many places that we were able to cause more casualties. It would be harder to justify that the opponent gets to choose which units come back, but as long as everything's still available, you could still kind of argue, well, the opponent made a specific effort on those, and there's so much battle across the whole, you know, so much conflict going on across the whole front that, you know, they devoted their pursuit in one place or another. And that's the best I can come up with on that. Honestly, I don't think that makes sense. I think, like, it should be worse to be cut off from enemy zone of controls than just get a blown or even an eliminated result. I'm not even sure what a pure eliminated seems to me that, like, you know, that's like a death ride. You know, that's where it should come out. Okay, I'm gonna swap batteries and load this up.